Thank you very much for being with us this evening. Like the title says, we'll have 20 minutes presentation from one side, 20 minutes from the other side, and then hopefully I'll do my best to moderate a 20-minute discussion on the topics that will come out from their presentation. Also on the topics of their teaching, the teaching as an extension of their practice. And one important thing that also play an important role is our current exhibition and our current show, which is a huge, wonderful program. Sometimes doing nothing leads to something. It is a little bit the motto and the title of this events. And maybe I hopefully talk also about how come doing nothing can also be a creative process, and how to which extent the doing nothing participates in today's practice, either of Kueng, Caputo, but also of Assemble. So saying that, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for being with us. I will maybe first introduce Assemble, then I will pass them the mic, and afterwards I will introduce Kueng, Caputo, Sarah and Lovis, and I'll pass them the mic, and then we will talk together. Like every time, the chat is there if you want to drop comments, remarks, also questions. We'll try a little bit to manage them after. And so here we go. Thank you very much once again, Maria and Joe, for being with us. Assemble, they are visiting professors this year at the master level. They hold a design studio. Assemble, just a quick word for those who don't know them. If you don't know them yet, they were formed in 2009. They are based in London, and they are a multidisciplinary team that works in, I would say, architecture expanded field, not only architecture, but also I think design and art and much more that I hope we will find out during their presentation. As relevant projects, I would underline the Art House in 2012 and 14, which was a very interesting project. Today dismantled, waiting for reconstruction, I think, which was a temporary workshop for artisans, architects, designers, creatives. The Sugar House studio, where they have their studio currently, which is also a huge house for creative professions, architects, craftsmanship related jobs, designers, fabricators. It's kind of supporting co-working and co-creation and collaboration. And also, for example, the Goldsmith Center for Contemporary Art, which I find personally a remarkable intervention for an art gallery, and which is, I think, a very careful and also generous work. And what's funny, it's this practice also, I was talking about extended field, their practice also extends to other types of medium, like for example, the Sympathy of Things, which is a radio documentary they produced and they directed, which was research, the outcome, if I understood correctly, of a research. As a key point, I would just underline from the 63 projects they have on their website, they all include the word collaboration in the text. And this is very interesting. Either they include the word collaboration or they include an identical word that underlines, that suggests that the project was generated through a collaborative process. And if you go there and try to confirm what I'm saying, if you find someone with a description who has not the word collaboration, Grand B Winter Garden, for example, use it 3 times. So it's a small thing that I remarked that I think underlines a lot what they are doing. So no further remarks from my side. I'll pass the word. Welcome again, Joe and Maria, and pass them the mic and also the screen. Welcome to our small auditorium.
I'm going to share our presentation.
We try to work quite closely with the title on this one, so it's maybe more unusual in terms of what we're going to talk about, I think. But I think hopefully it was fun. It's quite fun to put together, so hopefully it'll be fun to.
Yeah, thanks for that prompt.
Yeah.
So sometimes doing nothing leads to something. So when we read that, we thought, well, what is doing nothing? And the first idea we had was maybe not to do the lecture. So is that a kind of nothing in a way? That's the ultimate.
What happens if you just sit here for 20 minutes? But we thought maybe maybe nothing would happen, so maybe it's not so interesting. So we're not going to do that.
So maybe it means that it's doing stuff that other people can't see. Maybe it's projects that fail but may one day lead to something. Or is it about a kind of Taoist philosophy? Effortless action or actionless action?
Yeah, this slide, I guess, is about water and the idea that water is this kind of thing which is actually quite easily manipulated and it's very free flowing and will flow around stuff without a kind of friction, but that gradually over time the thing in which it flows past is kind of slowly eroded. So this kind of effortless action or actionless action, we wondered whether that was something that we could talk about in our work.
And I guess it's important to value what's there and then add. So a lot of the time in our work, we try to understand what's already there when we begin a project. We did the study for the Granby project in Liverpool, where we tried to kind of sketch out a mini master plan of a neighborhood. This is a drawing that we commissioned an artist to make. We put together a book which studies what's already great in the area, what's been derelict for a long time, how can we find opportunities in the gaps in between, and celebrate the things that have already been happening.
And I guess in this project specifically, or the Granby project, it's really just about documenting. It's like our role is just as documenters for the stuff that's already happening there, and in a way giving a kind of legitimacy to that as an approach that the people who were living there were already doing.
And this is another documenting exercise where we really did nothing but document the businesses and industries in the area around our old studios. And this area is an Olympic Fringe in London. It was undergoing a lot of change where industrial was turning into residential. And a lot of the time developers who are coming into the area will say, there's nothing here. And now I'm building this beautiful palace something. And I guess our role is to say, well, actually, there's a lot here already. And then with New Addington, project in South London, we dug out a lot of old magazines which talk about the life and history of the area. This kind of mini new town in London.
This is a project that we're doing in Dundee at the V&A at the moment, which is in one of the galleries. It's a residency, which is looking at the area around the gallery and all the kind of amazing architectural moments that exist within Dundee. And it's going through and scanning them and then making replicas of them, which will be used as to kind of form a room in the gallery, which will then go outside of the gallery and be a room in a kind of in a local institution. But it's really looking back to this idea that the V&A, which is a museum that's in Dundee, but it's also based in London, has of something they call the cast courts, which is really this idea of looking around the world of all this amazing stuff that exists and taking casts of them and putting them inside a museum. So this is literally going through and documenting all of the stuff that is kind of in and around the museum in Dundee.
And this is a 3D scan of one of our building sites where we couldn't really go in because of the health and safety. And so a kind of camera scanner thing mapped out the building, which was then used to make drawings of what's already there. And then a kind of more traditional documentation of a site, which is a landscape site, and the kind of different types of trees and planting and landscape conditions that exist there right now. And then a planning notice for our latest housing projects, requiring us to commission a bat survey to find out whether the bats are indeed already using the building or not. Which is common in England.
And so I guess another thing, if it's documenting stuff that's already there, is doing stuff that someone might not notice. Maybe that's what doing nothing is. So this is a project. God, oh no, you go, Maria.
This is a landscape project in South London, New Addington, which is a public realm project, which often times isn't very grand. You know, it's like a stage for events and some new trees and landscaping, a little play area. But still, you know, these projects take years to finish, to accomplish. And this is a funny footage from this is a long time ago, 2011, when we were doing this public realm project. We decided to help the market reorganize, and so we spent this whole night in the middle of winter dressed in high vis, kind of moving signage around the town square. No one knows about that.
I guess there's also all the stuff behind the scenes. So this is an exhibition that we did exhibition design about the architect Lina Barbardi, and we spent an extremely laborious 6 weeks designing and making these plinths which look like concrete but actually aren't concrete. And in the front of house of the studio in which we worked, we did a full-scale mock-up of what the whole gallery would look like with these specific projections being projected onto this type of Tyvek material. And I think when you look at the exhibition at the end, I think there's always the fact that you kind of wonder if that work even happened, or did you do it? So it's the idea of the unseen work also.
That's Joe in there with the shovel.
Yeah.
And then some beautiful models we made for some housing in Granby, but again, like a really quick paper facades, exploring the brick and the new build facades and ornamentation. And no one knows in the end when it's built that there's all these iterations of it. Some engineers' drawings for another project. And this is the goldsmiths, you know, again, kind of a subtle celebration of the existing tank building, revealing what's been already there. Some door handle schedule. You don't think about that when you go and read the design article, do you? But this is there. And then
I guess the idea that a lot of the time by doing nothing, I mean, we just don't do everything. And that's a kind of idea that we'll carry forward in our work. So I think, as was mentioned earlier, one of the main ideas behind this project, Yard House, was just to not do it. And it was partly because we wanted to make a building that was affordable. And so making something affordable means that perhaps you don't build all of the bits. So it doesn't have any internal walls, for example, which helps to reduce cost. But also the idea that really to have ownership of something, it's useful if someone is coming into something which is not completely finished, because then through the process of making it their own and making the iterations, it gives a kind of degree of ownership to the people that are based there. And I also think adds a kind of liveliness, I think, to the kind of internal. So everything's not predetermined, but there's a scope and space for people to kind of make it their own.
And then this is a footage from the Adventure Playground in Scotland, in Glasgow, a playground we set up which allows the kids to shape their environment. So I guess we designed the main infrastructure of the landscape, but really it just keeps changing and changing all the time. And the key thing we did was organize the organization. And so again, empowering them to do what they want in the space. And then obviously there's stuff that, you know, when you do something, but then that really leads to nothing. So all these projects that and competitions that never come through. Here's one that is dear to my heart, which is a climbing wall facade, which actually got planning. It's a facade of a leisure centre in Wales, but then the managers of the building just couldn't in the end go for it, because they would have to maintain the climbing wall, and it would have just been a nightmare. So it didn't happen. Here is a kind of community growing greenhouse food courtyard in an estate in London, which also didn't happen. Here's an art centre in Belgium, which another museum in Belgium, which isn't happening. We didn't win it. Here's a toilet which looked cool, but if it failed, it collapsed. So it's not working as a toilet yet. Some tests, material tests, which may become something, but we don't know yet.
Yeah, I guess the idea of doing stuff, but not knowing what it's going to come to, and that maybe it will never come to anything, but that's not really the reason that you're doing it. And that's something that we're doing, I think, more often than not, is just experimenting and testing and stuff, and not knowing where it's going to come to.
And I guess we Assemble have really was born out of this idea that doing something is better than doing nothing. And that was our first project, the Cineroleum, which was a group of us getting together to try something out. And so we built a cinema in a petrol station. And really, it was all about doing everything in a way. It was making the costumes and doing the curtains and organizing the films, curating the films, and kind of ushering people around the cinema, lifting up the curtain, making popcorn. And since then, we've been really lucky to work with other people who we really connect with, in that feeling of kind of, don't want to say activism, but I guess maybe that's what it is, or just a desire to try and change the world around you. And so the Granby Community Land Trust are that group of people who managed to take over, you know, what was really kind of let down community in Britain and Liverpool, houses that were kind of left to rot for decades, and they took ownership and kind of did what they could in their environment, by firstly kind of decorating them, but also self-organizing into a community land trust and planting the streets and trying to figure out what to do with the houses that were kind of left available to develop. So they set up a Granby market, but also approached us to help kind of figure out what to do with all these buildings that are, you know, kind of originally beautiful terraced homes, but had a lot of repair work to be done to them.
And I guess when we first spoke about this talk, it was quite fun, because I was like, I mean, the one thing that Assemble is, and I think it's also true with the Granby 4 Streets Community Land Trust, is that we would always do something. We would never do nothing. And in a way, our thing is always to do something. And with the Cineroleum, it was the idea of like doing a project and making it and building it and running it. And I think also with the Community Land Trust, I mean, that their power was that they were the people that were painting the houses, that were planting the streets, that decided to set up a kind of community land trust. And it's the idea that actually that kind of, you could call it activism, but that kind of impetus to do something is actually super important. This is an example of when we didn't do something in the project, where there was options of, there's no ceilings in the building, so we decided when we renovated them to not put one back in.
This is And this is one of us making fireplaces for the homes, I guess, again, to try and remedy the fact that the budget for this housing renovation was so small, to bring some added value to the homes by creating something special and small and kind of handmade. So we made these fireplaces using demolition rubble, casting them into fireplaces that each home would then have at the end. And then finally the winter garden, which is this dreamy image of a tropical paradise in the middle of North England. But it's again trying to convert one of the Victorian terraces that was in really poor condition into something, still into something. You know, it was going to be too difficult to turn into housing, but a community indoor space could work. So we proposed the winter garden and managed to get funding for it. So it was finished last year and opened. We've also been involved in a project in New Orleans in the States. Again, part of the city that has been kind of neglected in terms of funding and development for a long time. And so I guess taking part in doing something and contributing to a kind of ongoing educational art project, which is, yeah, all about doing something where for a long time people did nothing or did something which is bad and detrimental. And this is, yeah, I think we did with the Chicago Biennale and the students last year.
And this is quite a funny one. I mean, when you try to do something, but then you're not allowed to do it. And we have a number of examples of this, whereby we'll be in situations with projects. We'll be trying to do something, but for not having the correct permissions, whether that's planning permission or various other constraints or blockages, things can't happen despite the want to do something. So the first project, Durham Wharf, is one of our oldest projects and still has not started construction, but was in planning for, I think, over 1,000 days, was it? 3.5 years or something.
But apparently even longer, actually, because we applied for it a couple of times. I remember that it started in 2013. And it's funny because it's not like a skyscraper. It's literally just retrofitting this building that would just be empty otherwise into affordable art space.
Yeah, to turn into affordable art space.
Oh yeah, this is it. This is the latest planning application. So you can see 2 years. This is another town square pavilion that we kind of actually got planning, but then the project managers on the job changed, and then the council changed plans, and so again we've been working on it since 2013. Not sure if it will ever get built, sadly. Another project we're working on is with this school in North London who are trying to expand the education program to growing food, and so designing this kind of allotment space, and kind of trying to get that through planning for a long time.
With no luck so far. It's the expansion of the school into the field next door to give outdoor classrooms and facilities for children to be closer to nature and to learn about where their food comes from, and understand growing cycles, and hopefully enrich the school, which is actually in a very, very kind of isolated area, deprived area. But we can't do it.
Whilst loads of skyscrapers are being built every day. Oh, and finally.
Oh yeah, and we thought that maybe this is a funny thing maybe this is a funny thing just to finish, but when you're pretending to do something, you're actually doing nothing. And we always use this image as a kind of idea of assemble and the kind of collective spirit that the Amish have when they raise a barn, that all the people will come together, and only with the force of everyone's hands are you able to build something for everyone to enjoy. And we use this image, and then this is some complaints that we got of the image.
Yeah, this is our reply to the complaint. Someone emailed us saying that this is a real health and safety risk, and it was a real danger to a construction site and a bad example. So we try to explain that we're actually not doing anything in that image. We're just posing. That's it, thanks.
And that's it, 20 minutes.
I mean, we have 20 minutes and 20 seconds. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Maria. It was really, really very, very nice, very amazing voyage trip around your practice. I think we were able, at least I was able to see a lot of message in between the lines of your presentation. Thank you also for tackling the theme with us, which was quite interesting to see how to tackle this doing nothing theme as a strategy to look over your own projects. And also, I would say this idea of to see as the most doing nothing action that one needs to engage. And also the perspective of a competition, with this kind of something that everyone tries while being an architect, which is your version of doing something for nothing. This was very interesting. I will now present you Kueng Caputo, which I think have certain affinities also, working a different perspective, but also, if I may say so, a relation to testing and experience, which is quite interesting, because Kueng Caputo practice tests the limits not only of form, but most of the times the limits of the questions they ask themselves, and this will lead to the questions of one can ask a material while testing that material, and sometimes creating hybrid and new ways of exploring, and also meaning new ways of expression. Kueng Caputo is composed by Lovis Kueng and Sarah Caputo. They are a duo of designers based in Zurich, and they've been also together since their assembled since their school years and formation years at the School of University of Art in Zurich. They also know a little bit this space because they in 2009 they helped to design the forms of inquiry here at Archizoom. They also got a project was named Copy in 2008 that had a huge outcome and an outreach while they were questioning other colleagues' work by engaging with existing designs and questioning what makes this design special. And by this action of observation that Assemble were just underlining, I think Kueng Caputo developed also a research project very interesting with this Copy project. In 2009, they also, because it's Enzo Mari that left us last week, they also work for an exhibition in AA London, a dialogue, in creating a dialogue with a piece related to Enzo Mari, Autoprojezione, which was quite interesting. And they also, I think, assemble some projects that tackle communitarian questions and community questions, in which the project itself is a trigger. And here I would underline the deliver takeaway that you may then Google and look. And I think more recently, their collaboration with Fendi gave an expression to their work, and they will correct me if I'm wrong, and the relation between their work and the environment and that's around them. So I would underline this idea of assemblage, this idea of transformation, this idea of hybrids, marked by a very strong, playful attitude that pushes a little bit the boundaries. And this relation to the craftsmanship, to the knowledge transfer that's part of our work during your research, I know, for example, Lovis, she started also as a locksmith at first. In Sarah, and when they are talking, they are underlying this this making by doing and testing as a big part of the job they face while designers. So they are also this year leaving a master design studio, and I will now. We are very honored to have Lovis and Sarah with us here, and I'll pass you the mic and also the screen. Thank you for being with us. Sarah, I think it's you. Can you unmute?
I do.
Great. Hello, Sarah.
Hi. Thank you for this very beautiful introduction. It's nice to hear a summary of somebody else looking at each the work we have done. I would like to present you 4 projects we choose to underline our approach to our work. As you told already, we have already a long way we go together, Lovis and me, and we worked with so many people, and with a lot of them we rework, and we develop each other's thoughts, each other's skills, and I would say with each project. So I would like to share my screen now. Okay. So I would like to start with this one. We have chosen this one because it looks like a very fancy graphic something, and it's actually a bench. And the story behind the bench is our love for materials and our curiosity to find out how things can be done and how limits can be pushed, how we can make a step further on with a craftsman or a craftswoman and to things maybe we haven't seen before or they have never done before. If you look closely at those 2 materials, you maybe don't see what it is, but one is metal, is enameled metal, and the other one is painted leather. We found in Florence a guy who is actually producing little money portemonnaie, and they have this strange leather. They shape it without sewing it. They shape it only with making it wet. It's a really old traditional technique. And we were, how does this work? How does this leather keep that shape? And why does it have this strange surface? So we went to visit that guy. And it's actually not only one guy, it's a whole team, a whole family behind it. And we were there looking what he's doing for days to understand what actually his profession is. We found out how it works, and we were asking a lot of questions, and he was willed to make us understand his knowledge, and he was willed to make me to not be shy or not to be shy to take a risk and maybe fail. And so we convinced him that we should try to make a furniture out of this. Till then, he has only worked in 10 centimeters objects, and we wanted to go big because we are furniture designers and object lovers. So we wanted to make these tools. And you see the top part is the painted leather, and we gave it to him. We will see it. Here we have, we painted a lot of different leathers. We made a lot of different animal feet, and we combined them to this series, which was exposed in our gallery in New York. So this is the example. I can show you with pictures how it works. Here, this is Marco, and we had the chance to learn a lot of him. So he is we paint the leather, and he is shaping it over a shape, a mold, and then he can take it away, and his father is burning with heat some stamps in it. So something that you would say, okay, that's easy, 3 steps. That's not so difficult. But this guy, he touched that ladder for maybe 1 hour. You really get nervous next to him because you think, especially as Cyril mentioned before the Fendi project, we collaborated again with these guys. He touched the ladder for hours and hours, and he tries to understand how that ladder was on the cow. Which one is the flexible part? Which one is the back part, which has another strength than the belly, and all these things that for us, it's just leather. And we are so fascinated by this kind of focus that this person is doing this every day with such a concentration. He's not flipping around with millions of things and ideas. He's just the best in checking the leather. And he will choose the perfect piece that is not bending wrong when you would shape the leather on a mold. So that was the one fascinating craft we had the chance to get to know and to collaborate with. And the other one was the enameling metal pieces. We lost all animal pieces maker in Switzerland. There is no one left. There's only one guy who was doing flat animals for the 3 signs, but nobody else was able to do it anymore. Everybody gave up the job or was already old and retired. So we found a young guy who was interested in this, Jörg, and he checked in books, in libraries, how he could do that. And here is a picture of him testing to put the metal with the animal on top in this oven and trying out which combination of animal is working well, in which degree, and which colors can be mixed and which colors can't be mixed, and which temperature gradient you need that is not pushing away in the end the lacquer from the metal sheet. So that was a shocking experience because, I mean, to make that whole research for one project, and usually this would be something that you learn from a master, maybe 10 years to be a good enameler. And this guy tried to understand that system more or less in a very basic technique in only 2 months. And to have this curiosity from a person who is engaging with you, is pushing things to a next level. It's so beautiful. We just love this. And we have the chance all the time to collaborate with new people who love their job and they're not disturbed too much by other things. So you see him here. This is the oven, and on the right side, you see the glowing metal. This will often be a black part with white dots. So the red is only because the metal is glowing, and this part in front is already cold animal piece. Here we have 2 glowing things. It's such a metaphysical moment if this metal, which is such a strong material, is somehow liquid, but still in the shape. Okay. So I would continue to another project with another group of amazing collaborators. It was even a much bigger project because it was launched by the Japanese government of Arita, which is the place where ceramics is actually started to be produced in Japan for the first time. They learned it from Chinese slaves there. And they have the problem that China is making much cheaper ceramics, and they lose jobs, they lose knowledge, they lose everything if they don't do anything. So what they decided, because the special thing about Arita is in this one place you have the clay. You see it here. You have the person who is making the glazing, actually the glaze for the ceramics. You have the mold maker. You have all the specialists in painting and drilling and whatever techniques you can apply on ceramics. This is all in a really narrow circle on this region. You can drive it nearly by a bicycle from one company to the next. So if one of these chain of production is giving up because they can't exist anymore because they don't have enough jobs, the whole chain is not working anymore. And they understood that, and that's why they launched this new company in 2016. And they invited international designers to collaborate and make it more public, their craft actually. So we had the chance to go there, and the first what we got is like the whole introduction to their process. We were looking here to their clay manufacture clays. I can talk hours about this. I will just flip through the images because it's too complicated to make you all the detailed process. But what is nice to say about this is if you start really with a blank mind and you're really open to what influenced you by what the people want to show you, what they want to share, you have I would say I know it's a whole new world it opens up, and it's inspiring a lot. It's much more inspiring than digging in your own brain for new resources. So that's why it's so beautiful if somebody allows you to enter so deep in a profession. This is the crew. So you see there are many people involved because it's really important. They want to save their economic situation and they want to survive and they want to continue their job. They want to continue to give their knowledge to the next generation. They want to continue this because they all know that's the best they can do. A very brave approach, I would say, to find together, because before they were concurrent and then they noticed the situation and then they joined as a group and they made this collective, and like the clay maker and the producer would sit on the same table and make a plan what to do. So we were inspired a lot, and we had a lot of troubles because we don't speak Japanese. We had to find a way how we can communicate with each other, but we had a lot of motivation from both sides. So we were talking with drawings and with sounds and with hands and everything, all things we can't do via Zoom because it was really important to be there, to touch things together, to be really haptic and physically there. There would have been no chance on Zoom for such a project. I hope we're gonna continue that way of working after. So what we came up is a series of ceramics, and we found out that the one guy has a special knowledge about he developed the spraying technique of glazing, and we were really impressed how he's doing this. So we would continue with him about the spraying, and we would shape out of this what he's so special in to this as if ceramic collection. I will show you here some pictures how the final objects look like. They are vases, plates, and everything, and they still continue producing this in Arita. And what was the thing for us that was really important, because we work with light and shadow, we needed a glazing that was matte and not shiny, because otherwise we had too much, that's very nerdy. We have too much reflection on it that we would not understand what our meaning of the object is. So we had to go in person to the producer of the glazing. They produce powders. They have a lot of powder mixing tools there. They will mix some things for months to make the right glazing. And we would say we need a matte surface. And they say yes. Very, very helpful. They would say, yeah, no problem, we will do that. And then we came back, this was not matte at all. It was still shiny, till we understood that they don't have the word for this matte. What we mean, there's another word for that. So, whatever, we made it because they made it to finish this project in a very beautiful series, which we are really happy with. It was actually our second serial product that is available, and we like this, that is something that the whole energy everybody puts in is not only in one project, it's still their energy goes on, because still things are coming out of the market and they're replaced in new places, new homes. Because this is sometimes with these action things that we love a little, the other side, that after you destroy everything and you're done, no? You had a good time and that's it. Okay, another one. This is another example for a collaboration. There is a friend of us, she's an artist, she's called Shirana Shabazi, and she's a great photographer and artist. And she was invited to make this art on the building. And she proposed this bank to make a floor. That's her floor. She made a crazy colored floor. And they would say, okay, that's great. We're going to realize this art piece in our boardroom. And then at one point she noticed that there would be strange tables placed on her floor. And she was asking questions, but why this table? Why don't we just have something nice on my floor? I don't want to have an art piece that is actually in such a connection or with no connection. She wants to have she makes an object that is located in a place, and she specially designed it for the place. So she will think that things should as well be included in this place to really understand it. So she asked us, can you do a proposal for a table that will be included in the table, not on top not included in the space and not on top on the space. So yeah, for sure. We said we can come up with an idea. We have never worked for a bank. What bank is it? Or what are they doing? Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, we have some political discussions about it, and we decided to do it. So, or to propose it. What we came up with is a table that was reflecting her floor. The inside of the table is all mirrored, and the mirror is inclined, and this inclination and opaque diffusion of the glass will give another picture of her art piece on the floor. So it would react on the floor. What was crazy that this looks so simple, and in the end this was made by maybe 100 persons that will create that table, maybe even more. We collaborate maybe with 20 different companies to produce this table, and with all of them they somehow put their soul in their little thing. And it's this, you need all these people that are engaged to make such a crazy thing, because they think, they first say no, it's not possible, then you say, but maybe can we not try it? And then they are, no, we cannot try it, I don't have the time. But what about it if we can do it? Maybe I could bring the glass and you could bring the acid, and could we not do it just like 5 minutes test? Like, so all these kind of little discussions till we have this beautiful piece in the end, which is looks very slick and very finished, but in the end it's a lot of testing, because it's all needs to be done for this one piece. It's not that you can order it by Amazon. So what is nice, what we like about the table is that each person that sits on it has a different view. So it's not that the boss has the best view. Actually, everybody has their own view, and it's not as you see, it's not a symmetrically organized board table, because it's all free-form shaped. So it was a big discussion in the bank if they can work, if it's not hierarchy. The hierarchy is not visible so easy. So there was like nearly a revolt in the bank that this table was accepted, because it was not the classical way. The team, the Shirana, she even pushed it further. She was not only bringing us in the team, she was bringing another another textile designer in the team because she said, but we need some, they needed some curtain because of the bank secret. So she was bringing in a lot of people just because she thinks that the project needs to be finished in a good way. And it was not at all her task to do that, but she engaged herself a lot into bringing good people in together and realizing this as actually a group project. So here you see again the beautiful floor, and then in the end they do all the other furniture as well in this waiting area. This is the kitchen. There are tables. I don't know. I never know how to make a break on Zoom because we need to have some time to have a silence as well.
Feel free.
No, but this is really a technical problem. I don't know how to solve this. If you make a real presentation, you can whatever, do something and you have a break. Okay, I will continue with this next project, which is actually, we finished this exhibition in Zurich last week. The opening was last week, which was not an opening. And we are very happy with it. But it was, we were invited to make a space and we were thinking, but what is a space? What is an empty space? Is it that we put questions in the room? Lovis and me, we talk so much, we discuss so much of the news, of the daily news. We talk a lot about society, about politics, about everything that is happening. So you put something in the air. She will put another statement to it. We will make it more and more real in our head. And there is the point where we say, now we need to check if this is real, what we guess. So we start to make, we put objects in our way. So we try to make a room that is actually how a brain works, or how our brain works. Is you guess something, you make up your mind, you get physical, you put it in your way. You start living with that object that stands next to your chair, and you feel it and you understand if this object is crap or if this object enriches your situation. And then if this works, if it's not kicked out, we would make it more detailed and get more and more clear about what actually it is. And then we would test it really hard. And so it becomes in the end, maybe something that is useful for daily life. So that's what we tried to do in that space. Now we have not the real photo material yet. We have pictures from the mobile phone of our photographer. And what you see here, or this is what I tried to explain before, these objects that start to interact with each other as we start to talk with each other. I say something, you add something, this changes my mind, and this will influence the other third person in the discussion's mind. So what we do is a whole space with a lot of objects that start to interact physically because you change your point of view. And there are things, this should not be here. This paint is not part of the exhibition. These objects, they start to interact with each other and they build all the time new architectural moments. There's a lot of tests and a lot of things that maybe you cut them out because you try something and then the crap, like the trash, is lying around because you didn't clean it up, and then this will be involved in the next project. So that's more or less what we assemble here to this exhibition, and it's full of different duos. So we have the styrofoam here, which is not drilled. This, I don't know this really in English. Whatever. The column is blue styrofoam. On the black is as well styrofoam, cut it out. So we have the bricks. We cut them out with a water cutter. We cut them out by hand. We cut them out when they are not burned yet. So we have a lot of tryouts here in this show to be honest about the development of things, how inspiring things can be, and how much will never be an object in the end. And then we have this nice symbol of the rainbow that is up in the ceiling, because often you think, but what are we doing actually? Why? What is it? We don't see an end of this. We don't see the solution for that problem. And then the influence is coming from an unexpected side and will help you to continue your project and to find a decision or a solution. So we have this rainbow that actually sometimes maybe you look up, that I think in the first picture you see very beautiful here, that sometimes maybe you see on something a rainbow that will gives you hope. So this exhibition is actually open from now for 8 months. And as long as the museums are open, we can all visit them in Zurich. Now I would like to come to the EPFL project, which is, it's called La Vita è Bella, and we have now the first part, we finished. We asked the students to create a space in their own room, a space that would be to test the space they have never lived in before. So the basic idea was they know their room so well because they were stuck in this room for the whole shutdown, and this room can be with simple architectural elements. It will look like a very different room because proportions, colors, materials, they all influence us a lot. So they would, we would ask them to test out their ideas in a very fast way. So they will build in their room with cardboard like walls and make a concept and test that concept if this is understandable for a visitor that would live for only one night in the room. And they tested a lot, and we were really happy they involved themselves so much into this one-to-one model making, as we are used as designers to make all the time one-to-one model, but in architecture it's not so easy. And they challenged this making architecture models in a very good way. We see here one example of Madina. She has a really small studio, and the studio has a cupboard, and in the cupboard there is a kitchen, and if you open the door there will be another thing that is where you can cut onions and whatever. So everything is in a cupboard. So she will continue this idea that each function of her room would be in another cupboard. So the whole room would be full of function rooms. This is just one example to illustrate where we are at the moment with the testing and where the project goes. We have another example here from Diana. She noticed that this golden foil has 2 sides, and if you hang them in the middle of the room, depending on the light situation, you have a see-through moment or you have an opaque moment that you see only one half. So she would interact with this in her own room. And then we have another example here of Pablo, which he wanted to make one room that is at the fresh air, very open, and the other part of the room should be exposed. No, the one part of the room should be exposed, and the other one should be very cocoon, very cozy, very intimate. And this should be in the same room because they had to work in one room. So he decided to split the room in 2 layers. You see, this is the top part, and this is the lower part. And we were so happy because they worked as a group. They found solutions to build crazy things in their rooms and to be not shy testing things and find out that a lot of things don't work and a lot of things they work if you are not alone. Yeah.
Sarah, I have a question. You're saying they had to have one visitor at home, or was supposed to hold to receive someone?
Actually, the idea was that they would sleep over, each student would sleep over in the other one's room for one night and test
Okay,
the room of the other person. This, because of Corona, we had troubles doing this, but so they were just visiting and not sleeping in that place.
Someone is telling me that the 20 minutes are over, Sarah.
Yeah, it's over. And I have one more example of Brigitte, and then I'm over as well.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah,
it was for
you.
this first the manual dimension of your work, where I see contact points with. We assemble also this idea of understanding deeply, understanding of the context of something, the context of a production, and also this idea of being an active agent in a certain chain. And also another thing that you shared, I think it was common to both these presentations, it was this idea of continuity and resilience and continuity of projects, either by your projects with Arita, or eventually, or also assembles illustration when they try to do something but they cannot, or they cannot have this. And maybe I'll start either with, for the last 20, now 15 minutes of open discussion, which I underline. If you have questions, just share them with us. Maria, Joe, Camille is also there, as I understood. I have a question for you, just to start by the difficult part of your job, of our job, of Kueng Caputo job. What is more difficult? Is it to build an architectural project or to build a community?
You are kind of building a community when you're building an architecture project. It's just a transient community. I don't know what you mean by community, but there's many definitions. But I guess on a construction site, there's a community of contractors, builders, engineers, architects who have to get along and communicate. And if a project takes 5 years, that's a community already.
And the local the local communities and the level of participation that some of your projects propose, and somehow there's a kind of an unknown factor. Is how the project will interact with the local communities. I have the impression that some of your projects, they have this factor, they have this element that take into account, and it's somehow unknown. No, you don't know what are you going to find out.
Yeah, you don't know what you're gonna find out until you start. And I guess that the different levels of community that you find, I mean, I guess, you know, like the Liverpool one, if you were to just look down the streets, you would see that most of the houses are boarded up. And I guess you would have assumed that there was no community. But actually, that project probably had one of the strongest community groups that we've seen of any project. And when you spend enough time there and you talk to enough people, and when you start doing stuff in the public realm, and you kind of start meeting people and you start talking to them and you start understanding how a place works. And I think generally with projects, we'll try and spend as long there as possible, particularly at the beginning of projects. And that's our way of trying to understand or try and bring out the community that's existing.
That question of participation, to integrate an element as an element of the project, the local community, where they are invited to interact. On which stage of the process, while we're doing the project and setting up the project, on which stage of the project do you add this element? It's since the beginning, or you a little bit know to do your research before saying, oh, this project needs the public participation or interaction with the public?
Depends on the project, I guess. If it's like housing, you know, then obviously the people that you're building the housing for are kind of really key, and you're going to start with that really early on. If you're building, I don't know, maybe if you're building street furniture, maybe that's the same. What's another example?
I think the participation comes from, I mean, it's it comes through conversation and understanding people, huh? It's like there shouldn't be an expectation that, you know, if you're dealing with a group of community things, that you would expect them to be able to design the house or to be able to design the, you know, community center that they're wanting to use. But I think that if you give enough time to people and spend time having conversations with them, then in a way you kind of learn how they might do it if they'd have the skills and training that are required in order to build a building, for example. And I think that we're kind of actively trying to spend as much time as possible having these conversations and letting people be heard, and we'll do stuff in order to enable that. So maybe that will be seen as the community participation. So it might be that there's an element of the project where you ask people from the community to go and build something, or you take part in a part of the market, or you make mantelpieces on the streets in the Liverpool project, for example. But really they're just, you know, they're ways of starting conversations, to have conversations around stuff and to kind of tease out and understand the situation that you're in and the desires of the people that are living there. And so,
and also I think it's like, because often we work with community, you know, people and places that maybe haven't had a history of a lot of investment of money and resources. And I think it's really important to see when we're building buildings or spaces, architecture as a way of giving those places a kind of dignity they deserve. And that is also just in the celebration of the beauty of building buildings really well, and maybe using interesting materials in a really beautiful way. And so I think for us, the way you do something is really important. It's not just, you know, and in a way, if you build something really well for a place that hasn't had that investment, that's already like, you know, that's already quite hard to do. Like, so I think it's really important not to forget that, just the role of a really good designer. And I guess maybe what we're doing is just spending our time in a different context, but I don't know if we're always radical in the way that people like to talk about us, you know.
I think perhaps like one thing is that being like formed as a collective who have different interests, and I think different knowledge and expertise increasingly these days. I think that when we walk into situations, there's not necessarily one thing that we'll do. And I think that a lot of like architectural practices who have maybe got one or two people at the front, I mean, there is a way in which they'll do something. And I think we're very plural. And I think that we can walk into something and quite easily say, like, actually what we're going to do here is set up a new organization, and there's people that are interested in that. Or actually what we need to do is build something very simple, but we can use local contractors, and that's also something we can organize. Or maybe what you need here is this particular piece of architecture. We've also got designers that can do that. So I think because we're a collective, it's very easy to then have more kind of open and genuine conversations with people about actually what the kind of right or necessary thing to do in a situation is. And I think that's maybe different to what other more kind of pure architecture firms would do, I think.
And I'll maybe take this input about entering a context to go to Sarah, because she talked a little bit about this haptic approach, and I'm a little bit interested, as times are a little bit shifting. Regarding your peculiar approach, the way you work your project, what do you think are the biggest challenges or the biggest barriers that your practice faces nowadays?
I don't know. I mean, barriers, there are always barriers. It's not that, especially now. I think we have with the digital version of life, we have a big barrier. I feel it's hard how a lot of people's work can be understood, because otherwise, at least, you know, you meet each other in the workshop, or you meet each other somewhere, and you feel what the person is doing, you have respect for it, and you honor somehow that this person is sharing the time with you, and in the digital way it's hard to feel that. So I think it's quite a barrier if we can't touch things, if we can't I mean, I heard this talk in the conversation on BBC of two architects, and they made up this future that everything should be touchless. So doors would open without touching, so payments will be without touching, like all the things would be automatic, and actually nothing we're gonna meet by hands. And I think we are too chemical. We need structure. We need physical exchange with materials, with humans. So I think that's a crazy barrier. I don't know how to take. Yeah.
That's a perfect illustration about the way that maybe you don't want things to go. I think we have a question. Dieter, can I open your mic? Yeah, I think I can.
Yes, hi everyone. Sorry, I'm in the train, so I didn't want to bother you with the moving image too much. Thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. Also, of course, Maria and Joe. It was really nice to see you, and I enjoyed while eating dinner. I admit I didn't want to bother you in the train. Well, there are actually two issues that I would like to talk about, and they are both concerned with the first notion that was linked to participation, and the second one, which indirectly now with Sarah's words, I would link to touch in the large, because what I really appreciated in both your lectures was the aspect that just the way you talk about things, how you articulate your language, but also how you use images and how you use the whole discourse in your lectures actually proposes a totally different understanding of what architects or designers or artists actually may propose to society. And I find that absolutely fundamental, because if I'm, let's say, for one moment slightly polemic, I would say that the way the word participation is used today is still very often out of the perspective of a more elevated perspective. Wait, do I have to change trains? Oh, no. This happened to me before. I'm very lonely here. No, let me ask, just one sec, I'm sorry.
This is the good thing about Zoom. Huh?
This is so 2020.
He's back. Dieter, we cannot.
I'm really sorry, because I'm now in the dark, but they tell me that it's continuing, but well, doesn't feel very good. Maybe you continue. I think I have here a technical issue. But regarding the participation, I think this, you know, where you imply yourself and how you get into the picture is so different in the way you described it. And it's not this role from a top perspective, but rather that you're really inside of the process. And that relates very much to what Sarah said in terms of what does it actually mean to work with people. And it's actually much more about learning. You all talked about learning at the same time, you know. It's not that we show other people how to do it, but rather we should also learn, and as much learn as you possibly can. Oh, okay. But sorry, I just wanted to throw in, it was not fully concentrated, as you can see, but maybe just as an input.
This is the learning aspect. I don't know if you want, one of you want to comment this learning aspect of that Dieter was putting the table, which is also related to the participation and to the level of participation of a project, and maybe also to comment a little bit how has been your teaching, how is your teaching related also to the practice of your studio.
I think on the participation thing, I mean, it's quite unusual, because we started our collective with a kind of collective build project, where the collective wasn't formed necessarily, but it was just 30 or 40 people who turned up, and some people turned up for a month and some people turned up for a day. And no one was being paid, and everyone was just building and designing and then running it afterwards. And it was very loose, and it felt like everyone was very much, you know, on the same level. There was no one in charge, there was no client, it was all for one thing. And I think as a kind of format, or at least in our mindsets, in a way, over the next 10 years, our practice hasn't really ever changed from that. So with conversations with clients and stuff, it's very much as if we were still, I guess, working in the mode of the first practice. And I think, I don't know, I mean, I think we people in Assemble will teach in different ways, but I think in terms of this unit that we're teaching at EPFL this year, I'd like to think that it also feels very collaborative. And in many ways, we're exploring a subject together with the students, and there's kind of open conversations, and the brief is not defined. I mean, the site is, because we think it's useful for that to be focused, but in a way, I think with Camille and Maria, it's very, very collaborative, and it's like, you know, if we have this time to spend on this subject, what's the most interesting way to spend it together? So.
Great. I don't want to, the idea of the format is to be very short, and I think we could talk. I don't know if someone with us wants to ask something, someone of the audience also wants to comment or to drop a line. You can do it now. Okay, so I don't know, maybe I would, just to finish, I asked, I don't know if you had time, I asked Sarah and Joe and also Maria if they could drop a recommendation of because I love books a lot, and of a design related book or whatever that we could or we should read. Maria, do you have something for us?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about it, and I thought I'd come up with something which maybe architecture students probably won't necessarily read. So I recommend reading a lot of Zadie Smith's novels because of the way that they describe London and kind of London life. And she also actually has one book set in the States, but it talks about the kind of architecture of London, the neighborhoods, particularly in Northwest London, where she grew up, and kind of bus networks and streetscapes, and the way that people of various classes live in those neighborhoods, and how those kind of classes and relate to the spaces. And it goes into quite a lot of detail in a really subtle way. So I really recommend that architects read novels, because they are much more atmospheric. Thanks.
Great, Maria. Joe, what do you have for us?
It's not my favorite book, but it is the book that I'm reading at the moment. And so I'm reading this, which is Work. It's A History of How We Spend Our Time by James Soosman. And it's essentially thinking, he spent a lot of time in Namibia with a hunter-gatherer tribe, and they work on a completely different system. So a system which isn't based on scarcity, which basically our society is based on, but actually the idea that the land is fruitful and you'll catch what you need when you need it. And he says that they only work maybe 2 or 3 days a week or something. So it's quite interesting, I think, in this time to question what work is and why we work, and why we spend increasingly more time working, and this kind of blurring, and the reasons for it. It goes into the whole history of it, and like why people do it for status and different things, and how it's unrelated to food these days. And it's, you know, it's interesting. I think particularly in these times where I'm sitting in my kitchen working at home, it's very kind of and
reading a book about working less, if I understood. Thank you for the advice. Sarah, did you have time to recommend us a book?
Yes, I'm just reading it now. It's a very famous book of Virginia Woolf. It's called The Room of One's One's Own, yes. And it's written in 1929, so it's nearly a century. And I think it's very funny and it's very sharp. And especially what I like about it is connecting it to the topic of doing nothing is this Virginia, she got from nowhere. She got money from a aunt, I think, who died. So she got a basic income actually. And that, then she had like 2 years, she writes in that book, that she would start to use her brain, that it needs time for her from this crazy life before of working, making money, being whatever, to come down, start to ask questions and to start to think. And that's what actually is happening in that book. So she writes her thoughts about the situation. And I think that's why it's really interesting to read it.
Great. Thank you. Great book. Thank you. Once again, do you know what book is Love is reading at the moment?
No, I don't know.
No, we want to find out in the next.
But she has good book tips, so we should ask her. Is she still around?
Yeah, because she told me she didn't know if she could be with us.
Yeah, she had a hard day.
If you are there, we want to hear from you. Otherwise, I'd like, of course, to express my gratitude to all of you, to assemble, Maria, Joe, Camille for being with us, Sarah from Kueng, Caputo for showing a little bit their work, what do they love about their work. It was really interesting. Thank you also for being with us. This was really great to have you. And from my side, I will just underline that for this first series of 20x20x20, we will have 2 more talks this month. The next one will be on the 16th of November. We'll have Camille Fréchot, professor, also guest professor at school, and also Martina Voser, also guest professor at the school. The talk will be moderated by Marine Villaret. And on the 30th of November, we will have Catherine Gay from Gay Manzel, and also Eva Gil Lopezino from Ellie. And the talk will be moderated by Tanguy Freposel. So take note, put on your agenda these 2 dates. And also, as I said in the beginning, this series goes along the sometimes doing nothing leads to something, which has a very nice program about the notion of doing nothing and how can it really trigger the creative act. So our inquiry will continue with a very rich program. And the next event will be next week on Monday. It's a lecture by Marcin Corby that will help us to understand the history of the beat generation writing techniques. The lecture is called Mad to be Saved, so I think it will be really interesting. And on Thursday, also next week, a very what I think is going to be an amazing dialogue between the artist Adrien Paci and another young artist, Alek Gjeloshi. So sorry for I'm not really good at saying names. And under the title, Does Memory Fade into Nothingness? So it was everything for today. Thank you very much for being with us. It was again a pleasure. Thank you, Maria, Joe, Sarah.
Thanks,
I
Tiago.
hope we can still see each other at the school if the situation improves. Fingers crossed. And so stay tuned. Thank you once again for everything. Okay. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.